107.5 The Game Podcasting is sponsored by Modern Exterminating, a family-oriented company. Professional, honest, and dependable pest control solutions. We're your one-stop shop for all pests. We do it all. We know what bugs you. Visit us online at pestfreesc.com. That's pestfreesc.com.
Extra point, Tyler Head, Jack Felcher along with you here on your Tuesday on the Game. Reminder, coming up this afternoon at 12:30 on the halftime show. Once again, we will have Shane Beamer's presser only here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia as he gives us his final presser preview for the spring game coming up on Friday night. We will have him on Carolina Calls coming up on Thursday, so you'll get to hear from him one more time before the spring game commences on Friday night over at Williams-Brice Stadium. We'll get into some of the coordinator stuff here coming up a couple minutes, but I want to continue the baseball conversation. And you mentioned this a little bit yesterday, but you wrote about it this weekend as well on Gamecock Central, and you've kind of been tracking Mainieri's mannerisms, attitude, those kind of things as this descent has happened in conference play. And I go back to the beginning of the season. There was nobody more cheery and more giddy about everything than Paul Mainieri. Even after getting swept by Clemson, he's like, hey, I know this is a big deal to people here locally, but we're fine. You know, the conference game is what matters. But as we've gone through these now 5 conference series, you can just see it wearing on him more and more to the point where, like you said yesterday, you know, he even misspelled Brendan Sweeney's name on a lineup card, and that seems very insignificant and small, but for a guy as seasoned and as a veteran as Paul Mainieri is, it seems like a mistake he otherwise wouldn't make. And you can hear it in his voice when he's talking to Jay and Elijah, when he's talking to you guys, when he's at a press conference, just a frustration and a lack of enjoyment for what he's coaching right now, which is completely understandable.
Yeah, I mean, look, losing takes a toll, right? And it's not fun. No one likes to lose. What do you play sports for if you're losing? Like, you want to win the games, and he understands that better than anyone. He is a proven winner, and that's why he's here at South Carolina, is to win games. But he's not doing that. And look, you're right. Beginning of the year, you go back to his first press conference. I mean, from that point to, I'll probably say, I don't know what point I felt like something just honestly turned. Probably like after the first SEC weekend where they lost to Oklahoma. That's when you could probably tell, like, it's not the same happy-go-lucky, cheery kind of guy. Like, he's still that way a little bit, but there's a total difference now. Like, it's not the same Mainieri that I first met, you know? Like, yeah. And I'd always heard from other people that covered him and stuff that he's this really great guy. He's awesome. He's great to the media. And he still is to some extent, but look, I'd be lying if I said it hasn't gotten more difficult over the last few weeks to try and ask, you know, fair questions. And in response, over the weekend, I literally feel like I got nothing out of him besides the fact that, you know, Friday was an embarrassment to the team and to the school. Like, that's fair. But the other 2 days, I mean, my questions also came after a walk-off. Like, that's understandable to some extent, but literally nothing out of him. And you can just tell by the way he's short with his answers. You know, normally he's a guy that's very, you know, he was very long at the beginning of his tenure, and he's kind of gotten to the point where he's a little bit more quick to answer questions now. But it's just, there's just I guess, as I said in the story and as I said yesterday, I do feel like he's checked out to some extent. Like, not saying he's quit on the team. That is not what I'm saying. But, like, you can just tell he's frustrated. He's just tired of it. And I don't know what that means for the rest of the season, but something's definitely up.
And look, I don't blame him for being frustrated. Everybody's frustrated. This entire fan base is frustrated about what they're seeing. But when you have a guy leading the charge that I think showed so much confidence and instilled a lot of hope in people, when it's clear that he is frustrated, when it's clear that he may be quote unquote checking out, everybody else is going to follow suit with that. Well, like, well, if he's giving up, then I'm going to give up too. And you know, I don't know what the turnout's going to be this weekend out at, you know, Founders Park. It's going to be a beautiful weekend. Easter weekend, obviously a holiday, but you know, if that place is a fourth of the way full? Is anybody going to be surprised? And even whatever the last series was out there that wasn't packed to the gills then, I think a lot of people have already checked out on this team. And again, you're halfway through conference play, and outside of basically winning, roughly 10 out of your next 15, you're really not putting yourself in any kind of position for the postseason.
No, it's going to be like I saw a video over the weekend that made me reminded me of it. It's going to be like that scene on Major League, man, where now it's like opening day for the Indians and they got no fans there. Like that's probably what it's going to be like tonight, to be honest. And that's what it was when they last played at home against Upstate. Like they haven't had a ton of home games lately, but I know this fan base is not happy, and I know they will let you know that they're not happy by kind of what's the term, like voting with their wallets. Like they're not going to show up at the ballpark. Like they have better things to do than watch a team that is very, just not playing very good right now. And you got softball right down the road, and I know it's softball, but like people have shown up to that this year. So it's just it's rough to see what's going on here in year one. Yeah, that's the other thing. I'm glad I brought up softball, because look at what people want to talk about, needing to give Paul more time and stuff. Okay, that's great, and I'll get his own players in, whatever, even though he did go out into the portal and reloaded this roster with keeping the key pieces from last year's team. Why is softball having no trouble when same situation, new coach, year one last year at Charlotte, and Maneri's been out of the game for the last 3 years, but Maneri's a winner. He was able to bring in players just based on that alone. How come softball is having no issues when, and they were in a worse spot, I think, than baseball was, and baseball's really stumbling. Don't tell me the SEC is not hard in softball. Yeah, it's probably harder in softball than it is in baseball.
Yeah, having that direct comparison definitely hurts. And I brought this up last year when Kingston got let go, and I said I think Wes Johnson's success at Georgia was not the main reason or a big reason why, but certainly something that had an influence on people looking around and saying, if this guy's coming in his first year at a program that hadn't been to Omaha in over a decade themselves and having more success than you right out of the gate, what are we doing? And again, I know it's a different sport, but a lot of people drawing the same comparisons like, hey, Ashley Chastain Woodard came in year number one in what might be an even tougher sport than baseball in the SEC and softball, because you got Tennessee or Texas and Oklahoma over here now, and she's coming out of the gate having success. So it makes baseball look worse by comparison. And if we had to be realistic before the season started, what would the record in conference play be 15 games in? I think you would have taken somewhere around 500, right? Because again, it's a tough league. You're not going to win every single series, especially going on the road. And if you told me this team was 7-8 or 8-7, wonderful. You're in great position to put yourself in the postseason. You're probably somewhere around the middle to top of the SEC standings at that point. Would have been great. But again, you're nowhere near that.
Yeah, and go back to last year. I mean, and even Kingston in year one of his tenure, he got South Carolina within a game of Omaha. So I know that was with a basically Holbrook's roster by that point. But look, this year, it just has not been there at all. Last year, they were like 8-7. They were coming off the series win against Florida. They were in contention to be a national seed. And then they got swept by Tennessee and Georgia. And so that kind of derailed that chance by, all things considered. And then, this year, look, it's just been so many times where they've lost games that they really shouldn't have. And I don't know what the record would have been. I'd say maybe about 5-6 wins right now in SEC play, but I don't think I would have picked them to finish 500 or better. That's just really tough for any team to do in this league.
Yeah, it's frustrating. And again, I don't blame people for being checked out. And if you are still investing in the team, props to you, and we'll see what happens in the second half of the season, or second half of the SEC slate, at least, that gets rolling this weekend as they take on Ole Miss starting on Thursday. We'll transfer over to football coming up next, as we did hear from Mike Shula as well as Clayton White once again yesterday for the final time ahead of Friday night's spring game. We'll dive into what they had to say coming up as the Extra Point rolls along. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri along with you on your Tuesday here on The Game.